This BMW E46 has a pretty good clunk in the rear end. Usually happens when I shift from reverse to drive or if I drop the clutch pedal pretty quick. Happens on all E46s and it usually starts around the 100 to 150,000 mile mark, especially on manual transmissions. But don't worry, because today I'm gonna be showing you how to diagnose it and how to replace it with a special technique that is going to save you hours upon hours compared to the traditional method. So this is the cause of our clunk. This is the rear differential. This is the rear subframe. This is what mounts the two. You can see some cracking developing there on the top, the side, a little bit more down there. We're gonna put a pry bar in between this differential ear and this subframe. I'll see if I can get you a good look at those cracks. See those cracks? This thing is pretty well smoked. It's pretty much torn all the way through at the top. Now the traditional method of doing this bushing and the way I've done it in the past is to drop the exhaust, drop the heat shield, pull the drive shaft out, pull both CV axles out of the rear differential, pull the rear sway bar, remove the differential completely, and then press the bushing out of the rear subframe, press the new one in. But today what we're gonna do is we're gonna pull this rear differential cover off. We're gonna get ourselves access to just that bushing, push the old one out, push the new one in, and then put the rear differential cover back on. And this is gonna save us hours upon hours of time. I've never done it this way, but I think it's gonna work. So what parts and tools do we need for this job? Well, I got a brand new rear differential bushing from FCP Euro. I also got a drain plug from FCP Euro, 2 bottles of OE fluid, and a tube of OE rear differential sealant. All of these parts came from FCP Euro. I also bought this front wheel bearing puller set from Harbor Freight. Then I also have this 1/2-inch piece of all thread. The bolt that comes in this puller set from Harbor Freight is too large to fit through the differential bushing. So I bought this 1/2-inch all thread so it can properly fit through this hole on the differential bushing. Other than that, it should just be some basic hand tools and some metric sockets. Pry bars always help too. Start with pulling the rear wheels to give us a little extra room. Next, I'm gonna pull the hardware for the rear end of this exhaust. I'm not gonna drop it completely. I'm just gonna try to hang the rear end here down. See how far we can get. Should be 4 13mm nuts. That should give us a little bit more room to move around and get this rear sway bar out. Now I'm gonna try to get these rear sway bar brackets off. These are what mount the sway bar bushings to the rear subframe. It's got a 13mm nut and a 13mm bolt. Okay, those are out. Now that the bushing brackets are out, we need to take off these rear sway bar end links. And the sway bar runs down into this end link, and this end link runs up through into the rear control arm. There's a 13mm nut on the bottom and a 17mm bolt head on the top. So you kind of gotta fish your hand up there with a 17mm socket or a wrench, capture that, and then rip the nut off the bottom. See if I can slip an open end wrench up in there. I think that would be the best. Take my impact with the wobble socket, see if I can hit that nut. Oh yeah, this one's a little tighter. There we go. So there's one side off. There's 2. Now we need to lift these sway bar bushing brackets up and out of the rear subframe. I got these little tabs on the bottom. There we go. Pull this exhaust down. Boom, shakalaka. Next step, let's get the bolt for this rear differential bushing out of the way. And then what we'll do is we'll start working on getting these rear differential cover bolts off. Now this doesn't have a drain because BMW, you know, just, I don't know why. So once we start cracking these bolts loose, it's gonna start leaking. So let's go grab our big wrenches. 21mm bolt, 21mm nut. But before we break that loose, there's something I gotta tell you guys. This video is sponsored by FCP Euro. Now FCP Euro is the #1 parts supplier for BMW or anything European. Now, I live in the sticks here in Northern California. Finding BMW parts locally is impossible. They have a shipping facility in Connecticut and Mesa, Arizona, so you are covered on parts coast to coast. I've been getting deliveries in as quick as 2 days with free shipping. Now they also have the best parts catalog that I've seen yet. I'm talking specialty tools, ignition, suspension, general repairs and maintenance, fender wells, trim screws, push pins, leather shift covers. They have everything. They give you OEM options, aftermarket options, and they explain it all. It's the best catalog I've seen. It's where I got my media blaster to clean my N54 intake valves. Now they got killer customer support and they have technical support. So if you have any problems installing your parts, you got a hotline that you can call. They got the best price, they got the best warranty. I use FCP Euro for everything BMW related, and you should too. Check out fcpeuro.com for all your BMW parts needs, and a big thank you to FCP Euro for sponsoring today's video. Let's get back to work. Okay, let's get this bolt out of here. There we go. Okay, we got about 8 bolts that we need to take out. I have no idea what size. I've never done this method before, so let's figure that part out. Okay, so it's 16 millimeter to get these differential cover nuts off. 16 millimeter all the way around. Once I take these bottom ones off, this cover is gonna start dumping fluid. So I'm gonna focus on the top ones. Now, this differential cover has sagged down since I disconnected it from the differential mount. And there's one nut back here, one bolt, that's hidden behind this differential bushing. So that's what I'm gonna focus on first, because this is gonna be the most problematic. What we need to do is we can take this socket, hold it over like that, and I need to lift the diff up. Oh yeah, 16 mil deep is the money. Now we had a specialty tool at the old shop I would work at, and we would disconnect this, and then we would air hammer the old bushing out, and then we'd put this half moon piece in here so we wouldn't snap this ear off, and then we'd push or we'd pull the new bushing in. It was pretty slick, but it was fully custom. Oh yeah, guys, boom, right there, baby. We got it out, we did it. Just this one bolt, but we're making progress. I think we can release our socket now. Who's that? Who is that? Who is that? Who is that? Hello, 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 my sweet girl. Hello, my sweet girl. All right. Got a drip pan underneath. Yeah, the color of that fluid is beautiful. Looks really nice.
A few minutes later.
I ate some lunch, let this cover drain. Time to get back to work. Oh yeah, there's the inside of our cover. Looking pretty clean. Pinion gear looks good. Ring gear looks good. Not seeing any cause for any concern. Gonna need to clean up that gasket surface with some good old Scotch-Brite, but other than that, we are looking good. So, time to work on this differential bushing. Now, if you notice here, this differential bushing is pretty much flush with this subframe. It's maybe inset by 1/2 millimeter, and this is slotted forward to rear. And there's also a specific way to put this bushing in and a specific direction that has the top. So let's get this old one pulled out. We'll compare it to the new, and I'll show you the orientation process. So here is the proper Melee subframe bushing. This is the rear differential bushing. The bushing I was showing you guys earlier was actually a control arm bushing that I had mixed up with another one that I had. But anyways, you can see that they are not the same. This end goes towards the differential ear on the back cover. This one goes to that outer subframe lip side that I was just showing you guys. So what I'm doing right now is I'm looking through this kit, and I'm gonna find something to receive the bushing. That means that I need a piece like this. What we're gonna do is this is gonna be mounted in there like that. We're gonna find a cup like this. We're gonna put this all thread through. Then we're gonna have this on the backside to receive it. Then what we're gonna do is put a nut here. And as we tighten that nut, it's going to draw this piece in, and it's going to suck and pull that bushing out of the subframe into this cup. Once it's fully pulled out, then we'll have an empty subframe slot. Okay, we're all set up and ready to go. I have my cup to receive the bushing. The bushing is in there ready to rock, and I have my plate on the outside to pull or push the bushing. I have my nut on the outside with 2 washers just for a little bit of help with resistance. Same on the other side. I have my 2 ratcheting wrenches. Now I just gotta crank this all thread and pull this plate through, and it's gonna push this bushing out into this cup. Let's get started. Now you want to visually inspect it and make sure that plate is going straight, because if it's a little bit too large, it can catch and get hung up on the subframe. Boom, baby. Look at that. Beautiful. Kind of rounded out our threads a little bit. Nut, washers, plate, all thread. And there's our bushing. So this thing was super smoked. I could feel it all the time whenever I shifted. Time to put the new one in. So the big question is, how are we going to install this one? We just need to pull this one in to where it's flush. That means we're gonna be pulling the bushing in from this way, from passenger side. We're gonna be pulling it in. So that means we need to have a cup that hits the outside, but it leaves a cavity. Because if we're pushing off of this extended piece of the rubber, we're going to be pushing on this bushing the entire time as we press it in. We're gonna be putting unnecessary stress on this bushing. So like this cup, for example, perfectly lines up around the outside of the bushing, but it has this cavity on the inside. So it doesn't make contact with this raised piece. It's just gonna make contact with the outside lip. So this is gonna be our driver. As far as the backside goes, we just need a cup that's larger than this, like this, and we don't need a cup anymore because we're not receiving. We're gonna use the subframe as the receiver, if that makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense. So I think right here is our package. I think this should work perfect. We'll just run that down through there like that. This one on the back side, and we're gonna drive this in until it becomes flush or just before flush, like we had on the other one. Another thing we can do to help our installation is take a straight edge like this and mark our old bushing line. So we know roughly how far we need to go in before too far. But with that, I think we're good. What I'm gonna do real quick is take some Scotch-Brite and just scrub out the inside of that subframe surface, make it nice and clean to accept our new bushing. All right, time for the new bushing install. And before we get too carried away, we wanna make sure again that we orient this bushing properly. We need that dot on the driver's side facing up and the dot on the passenger side facing forward. Make sure that slot in the bushing for the bolt is facing front to rear. We'll just have to reset it. That all thread's pretty tired. Almost done, but this all thread, this or the nuts, getting damaged, so I need to cut a new piece. Instead of cutting a new piece, I'm just gonna see if I can lop the end off. Much better. Just cleaning up the threads on this nut real quick so the last bit of this job goes smooth. The all thread and this nut were just getting sticky, so just cleaning them out with the tap. Now the all thread and this nut I've used like 3 separate occasions on differential bushings, so if you use all thread, depending on the hardness of the all thread, this probably won't happen. It's usually good for at least the job without any hiccups. Oh yeah, look at that. Like butter. Let's see if I cut it too short. I enjoy fixing nuts and bolts like that. I think it's fun. Oh no, it's all locked on there. Threads are smoked. See if we can break this part loose. Yeah, this all thread will get the job done, but it's just too weak for that real high stress stuff. All right, almost done. I had to completely cut a new piece of all thread and find a new nut because this nut just completely seized on the old piece of all thread. It was just too tired. Little buddy was like, I'm done, dude. I've done my service. Even without taking the differential out, this job is still time consuming. Advice, if you're gonna do this job yourself, make sure you have plenty of all thread. Make sure you have extra. Buy extra hardware in case your nuts get worn out like mine did. And you need to swap them out because I almost had to go to the hardware store to go get another set of nuts for this all thread. I have metric hardware, but I don't keep fractional 1/2 inch hardware in stock. That's what this all thread is. This is 1/2 inch. I think what would have helped too is if I would have lubricated the piece of all thread with some anti-seize. I think that would have helped the longevity, but I didn't. If you're gonna do this, I'd probably do that as well. That's what this channel is about, guys. Showcasing my mistakes so you can learn from them and do the job even better when it's time for you to do it. I ain't afraid to share my mistakes. All right, starting to get stiff now, so I know it's bottomed out. Oh yeah, swapping that all thread made a big difference. So I can actually back the hardware off by hand now. Oh yeah, She's perfect. Look at that. Dot towards the front. Nice, uncracked. Nice and flush with the subframe there on the left-hand side. Good to go. It's getting dark. Let's start putting this thing back together. We need to clean this surface and get it prepared for the differential cover. What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Come here. Come here. All right, I scrubbed it, took it outside, and I pressure washed it. Now my pans are nice and soaked. It's getting cold. Let's get this hardware cleaned up. We're gonna slap this cover back on. We got the diff cover cleaned up, front and rear. Mating surface is all nice and clean. Cleaned up the hardware. Now we got this sealing stuff. This is OE fluid. Used to have a thin gasket, but they switched to this stuff. I've used it before on differential reseals. Anyways, I'm just gonna throw a bead down across here, smear it in with my fingy. I'm gonna go decently heavy. I got 7 out of 8 bolts back in. Now it's time to put our socket back in so I can get access to that 8th. I got it snugged finger tight. All right, she's tight. You nodding off, girl? You sleepy? All right, gang, I got the differential bushing bolt back in. Now it's time to get this fill plug out, put some new fluid in it. This takes a 14mm Allen. So I took my buddy's Allen socket, cut the tip off of it. Thanks, Todd. I still don't think he knows about that. And then a 14mm wrench. This fill plug out of here. Then what we're gonna do is we're gonna fill this with fluid until it trickles out. Throw a new plug in. And there's our trickle, and we cap it. So that's another tool you're gonna need is a 14mm Allen socket. Tight. Next step, throw on the rear sway bar, throw on the rear tires, but if you took them off, you can put them back on again. I'm not gonna bore you with those steps, but check out this sweet time lapse. All right, time for the moment of truth. Do we have any clunkage going from forward to reverse, or when we really drop the clutch pedal? Let's drop the pedal. Oh yeah, nothing. As I like to say, buttery smooth. Oh my God! Wow! Feels super good. Really excited to get this car back on the road. It's gonna have that nice OE feel. Now, as far as difficulty level of this job, I'd say it's advanced. I wouldn't say expert. I'd say it's a 7 out of 10. Getting that rear sway bar out is kind of a pain, although it's totally doable with hand tools. Having to finagle that differential to the side with the pry bar while you fit that 15mm socket in there to get access to that hidden top left bolt, it's kind of a pain. But this is a little different than my other technique of doing differential bushings, dropping the exhaust, dropping the heat shield, dropping the drive shaft, pulling the CV axles. I'd say that method is way tougher because you gotta drop the whole differential right on your belly. And I really don't like disturbing these drive shafts. Once you disturb them, they have a high probability of having vibrations when you put them back in. So if I had to do it again, I would probably do this method. It's also nice to reseal the differential cover and to do a service while we're in there. So I'd recommend doing it this way as well. Super excited to get this car back on the road though. It's gonna have a real nice OE feel. Other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed or I hope you learned something new. Big shout out to FCP Euro for sponsoring today's video. And as always, folks, I'll see you on my next day off. Cheers, everybody.